The market is surging. The Bank Nifty, it's one of those trending days. The signs are there. The Bank Nifty is now up 300 points. Kotak Mahindra Bank is now leading the bull charge. Just see that stock. And of course, the market believes that this whole uncertainty about 31st December perhaps goes out of the window. Remember, Kotak's used to be the best performing banking stock, was 1450 the high, and then it had that big correction because of this fear that they had to cut the stake. That perhaps is no longer bothering the market. And yesterday also you saw towards the end, that was the big mover. And today also the kind of volumes that it's generating. There's someone buying big on Kotak Mahindra Bank right now. And my sense is it must be institutions. Ashiwini Gujral, Mitesh Thakkar back with us. Sandeep Wagle will also join us in a bit. Ashwini, your thoughts? It's turning out to be a bit of a trending day. How would you approach the rest of the day, and what would be your stock calls?
Well, I think it's more of a trending day on the mid-cap space where, that index is doing the best because the smaller financials are moving up strongly. So that's where you need to look for the day. I don't think the big banks will give you big outperformance. So that way, India Bulls Housing is a buy with a stop of 724, target of 750. Yes Bank still a buy with a stop of 180, target of 194. L&T Finance is a buy with a stop of 138, target of 146. Basically, get hold of things which are in trouble for the last 2 months, and they will give you bigger moves.
Okay. Mitesh, what have you made of this early morning rally? And is it index? Is it stocks? What would you play?
So, Lata, two stocks, in fact, both on the buy side. And as I said, I think it's the Bank Nifty. I think, if it continues getting past 26,150, could head towards 26,600. So, I think that is lending a lot of strength to the Nifty. Two stocks which I've identified, I think, in fact, Hero Motors was a buy around 3105. I think it's close to the target of 3190. The other one is V-Guard. Try to buy it around 215, 215 half range and keep a stop at 211 half and look for targets of 223.
Okay, Motherson Sumi is now moving even higher. I think this resolution between China and US.
Expecting that they will cut tariffs.
Expecting they'll cut
auto stocks all across.
Exactly, across the globe. This, auto stocks have done well. And on days like this, you see normally Motherson Sumi take the lead. So that one's seeing big gains. Mitesh, any quick chart check on this one?
So in fact, the entire auto pack, I think, and even the ancillaries are looking good. Motherson Sumi, at least on the hourly chart, is just on the verge of giving a reversal. Let's get past 157, and we are looking at 166, 167 to begin with, and then even higher targets can be achieved.
Okay, well, the NBFC space is really hotting up now. M&M Financial is up almost about 5% and a whole host of others. AU Small Finance, PNB Housing Finance, India Bulls we've spoken about. All these stocks are doing very well on volumes as well. Sandeep Wagle joins into our discussion. Hi, Sandeep. Good morning. The financials look like they're ruling the roost today. Anything that you would buy there or anything at all?
Good morning, Sonia. Yes, I have two buys. A buy in a Hero MotoCorp, stop loss of 3090, target of 3240. And a buy in a Bata, which is continuing the move, stop loss of 1071, target 1110.
Okay, Ashwini, Tata Steel, any chart check here?
Basically, each time US and China kind of are closer to a deal, autos and metal stocks will move up, but how sustainable is that remains a problem unless you want to hold it for a long time. Tata Steel, previous recent bottom was around 490, 500. So that way, risk reward wise, you have a 20 rupee downside, and if something happens, maybe 560, 570. So that way you can buy even into these metal stocks.
Okay, I notice, of course, India Bulls is one of Ashwini's plays. Mitesh, your thoughts on what I can now call the Shaktikanta stocks? Bank of India is up 4.4, Corporation still up 4.3. I think I already asked you Corporation. Any of the NBFCs, India Bulls is up 5.7. It was in Ashwini's list. I thought DHFL also up 3%, Edelweiss up 3.75, Magma up 3.7, Equitas up 3.4. You could call them the Shaktikanta stocks for the moment, the hope trade. Anything, Mitesh?
Yeah, you can call them. And I think I was talking about PSU banks going higher early in the morning. But yeah, I think apart from the NBFC pack, I like L&T Housing Finance a lot. I think it's just right now giving a good breakout on the intraday charts. Keep a stop at 138. look for a 150, 155 kind of a target on the upside to begin with. And the other ones, I think, DHF and all, I think these are stocks basically which were extremely oversold also, trying to give a reversal. So trade with tighter stop losses here. On DHFL, I would keep a stop at 206, look for targets of 225.
Okay, well, on M&M, Ashwini, do you think the worst is over at that 700 rupee mark? I mean, it's bounced back from there twice. You think it's been a bottom, he's made a bottom at that level?
M&M as an auto.
Yes.
See, the point is that this year will be a, up and down type year because autos is going through that phase. It goes through cyclically where sales, etc. News isn't good. So if you want to buy for like next 3 years, this is a good spot to get in, and when auto sales, etc. pick up, you will see highs. But for a trading view, maybe 800, 820 can happen. But I don't see big new highs coming into auto stocks.
Okay, by the way, just keep an eye on rupee as well. It opened with weakness, but all of a sudden there's a big strength now playing out in the currency market. Just look at that. 71.97 now. So in the morning it was, Lata, I think 72.20.
Yeah, went to 72.20 when it opened.
Yes, from there it slipped quite a bit. That also is normally, the financial positive. Money moves out from IT into banks. When you see these kind of moves intraday, especially on the dollar rupee, so that's also on the margin helping right now.
Absolutely. I mean, as I think when Suyash said, we are, the news of the RBI governor, etc., are coming at a time when the global markets are in a risk-on mode, and especially all of Asia is now in a happy position, and therefore that also is helping the rupee recover from the morning lows. Almost, below 72, so that's a fair amount of strength that you're seeing in the rupee market as well. And actually, the yield, we've not checked on the yield, it's 7.45. Yeah. I mean, that's quite a come down from the 7.58, 7.65 and etc. we saw when the first announcement of the governor came. Which was uncalled for, because in any case the monetary policy is a different issue altogether. But nevertheless, the market now in quite clearly the grip of the bulls. It's up about 1.5% as far as the mid-cap index is concerned, and 1% higher on Sensex and Nifty. Thank you very much, Sandeep, Mitesh and Ashwini for your calls, and of course we will keep touching base with you.
All right, let's move on. In fact, good for the markets, and we have that big election hurdle which is out of the way. The Madhya Pradesh tie has finally been broken and the Congress has won the big three in these semi-finals. A.K. Bhattacharya, the editor at Business Standard, joins us now to talk about that, and in a bit we'll get more guests in. Mr. Bhattacharya, good morning and thanks for joining us. There is enough evidence that barring the 2013 cycle, state election verdicts have really never been the bellwether for a national outcome. Would you also believe in that view that, an anti-incumbency currents are very different when it comes to state elections and national elections?
Well, it will not be fair and correct to just lead from the outcomes in these assembly elections and conclude that these will probably be the pattern of verdict in 2019, because as everybody believes, and I also do, that assembly elections are fought on a variety of other issues. There are different kind of anti-incumbency and different kind of policy issues at play which are of a local nature. And whereas it comes to the national election, which is 2019 May, you will see local issues not getting that much prominence. Instead, they will be replaced by national issues, and also the interplay of national leaders will be a bigger factor. And therefore, it will be wrong to conclude from these elections that that the pattern will be the same. What it does mean is that it is a setback for the BJP, and it is a revival for the Congress, and it's a celebration time for voters and democracy, because given the nature of the verdict, you can safely say that the constitution of the upper house in Rajya Sabha can never be cornered by by one political party or one political group, so which is great time for Indian voters and Indian democracy.
Okay.
But it is not celebration time for political parties.
Okay.
Because if you look at the challenges the political parties face in light of what has happened to these 3 or 4 states, the agrarian distress and the challenges arising from that, I don't think any political party has really found a credible, viable solution to the challenges that India's vast number of people have faced in the farm sector.
AKB, I take your point on that, and I'm going to come back with some economy-related question, but just a very quick political one. It looks like it is a resurgent Congress. They are now in power in 5 big states, if you include Punjab and Karnataka as well. Is a resurgent Congress a deterrent to opposition unity, or a fulcrum around which opposition unity may come? That might be a decisive factor in the 2019 polls.
Yeah, you took away the words from my mouth almost, and I do believe that a resurgent Congress is not necessarily always good news for opposition unity. Now, already you have seen that the meetings, the opposition leaders' meetings that were held, there were 2 important political parties who were missing. Any regional party which sees itself as a strong force in a state will think twice before joining an opposition alliance which is led by the Congress. So whether it is SP and BSP in Uttar Pradesh, or SP and BSP in Madhya Pradesh, or in Chhattisgarh, or even in Rajasthan. So I think that the rise of the Congress is not clearly an unequivocal good news for opposition unity, and we have to still see to what extent, and one has to analyze the vote share to understand to what extent is this victory of the Congress is a victory of the Congress or a defeat of the BJP engineered by disgruntled, unhappy people, farmers in these states. So one has to see that whether it is actually people want Congress back or they want actually BJP out in these states. So there is a subtle difference between these 2 verdicts. So I think one has to really understand that.
Yeah, it's an election lost rather than an election won, as people have been. Sorry, Sonia.
No, I just want to point out, the market is rallying big time. So it's almost a 100-point rally now that you're seeing on the index itself, on the Nifty, and the Sensex is up more than 300 points. So the market has clearly moved forward, after the election.
Almost 7 stocks in the green for 1 in the red, which means what, 85% of the stocks are higher than yesterday.
Oh, absolutely. Mr. Bhattacharya, the BJP will of course try to salvage the situation by perhaps coming out with some populist measures, etc. There are talks of a farm loan waiver, the possibility of helping MSP reach out to farmers by some more schemes, etc. Do you think the market should be worried about that?
Well, I think why markets, any person who believes in sensible economic policies would be very worried about the tendency to go in for debt waivers and mindless increase in MSP, minimum support prices, without realizing that the agricultural distress that one is seeing right now is not a distress of the past. The past distress was one of scarcity, and this distress is caused by a surplus. So therefore, clearly what worked in a situation of distress cannot be addressed in a situation of surplus. So, what worries me is the level of state finances. They are already not in good shape. If you look at the latest RBI report on the state budgets, many of the states have already crossed 3% of GDP. So if you look at the total country's fiscal deficit of GDP, they're already touching 7%. So I am worried about this tendency to go that extra mile to appease the farm sector through cosmetic measures by giving debt waivers and increasing subsidies, increasing minimum support prices without taking the necessary steps of increasing investment in agriculture, improving productivity, introducing technology, and making sure that Indian farmers have a right access to the markets, and making sure that the food processing industry is revived, so that the linkages between the food processing industry and the Indian agriculture is ensured. So there is a host of concrete package measures are required. You don't need palliative like minimum support price and debt waivers.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's the danger in my view.
Yes, AKB, we had a farm leader sometime back when we were discussing these issues telling us that all of you economists are talking about how to make us farmers happy in the farm, whereas what I actually want is to put my children out of the farm and find jobs outside the farm economy. So that's a perennial cry to raise the number of jobs outside the farm economy. But that's not a 3-month issue. That's a bigger issue. We also have Swapan Dasgupta, veteran columnist and Rajya Sabha MP, joining us now. Good morning, Swapan. Thank you very much. How would you extrapolate the numbers of the state polls to the 2019 polls?
Well, obviously, this has been a monumental setback to the BJP, because even while they privately had conceded that Rajasthan was on a sticky wicket, they were reasonably confident of winning Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh. I think what has come as a shock to them is the extent to which rural distress has led to the truncation of the BJP vote in all the 3 states. And that is something which is a long-term issue, and that is something which actually carries over into the 2019 elections. That's really the big worrying point. The less worrying point for them is the fact that actually the vote share of the BJP compared to 2013 remains more or less same. So while they may have shrunk from 2014, as far as between assembly election to assembly election is concerned, their vote share is more or less intact. So that's something a little reassuring on their part. Now, what they would be hoping for is that the dynamics of a general election, when national issues are there, when the issues of stability are there, when the question of leadership is there, all these will once again ensure that many of those who may not have voted for the BJP at the assembly election will once again revert to the BJP in a national election. So that's their optimism. But that should not distract from the fact that at present, top of the agenda is the issue of rural distress and to some extent the impression that we are going in for a jobless growth.
So should we be ready for some sort of fiscal pressure as the rural distress issue gets tackled, Mr. Gupta, and perhaps more populist measures are announced? I mean, what would you expect to see on this front? What resolutions would you expect to hear from the government, and what would that really do to the fisc, you think?
Well, I think far more interesting, far more important to my mind is how the government manages to negotiate its way with the Reserve Bank of India. And I think one of the main concerns of the government at present, and that's linked to the jobs situation, is the fact that they feel that the credit squeeze has really meant that the SMEs are beleaguered. And there will be a lot of pressure, there will be a lot of negotiation for a reduction in interest rates and an easing of credit supply to industry. That's on one side, and I think that's not necessarily a negative development which will happen. As far as agriculture is concerned, yes, when a substantial body of people in a democratic polity expresses a view, I think the political class is bound to take note of that. And so we are going to see some form of, I don't know exactly what the form it's going to take place, whether it's going to be in the form of enhanced minimum support price, whether it's going to take the form of debt waiver. I have a feeling that it'll probably be a combination of various things, but really it's the MSP factor which really has to be noted. That's probably going to rise. And the announcement which was made earlier this year about the implementation of the Swaminathan Commission report, I think they will press the accelerator to ensure that actually farmers start getting the returns from that. So there's a lot will also depend on implementation. And there will be, in my view, a shift in rhetoric. But to what extent rhetoric influences the fisc is something which really depends on the maturity of the markets, etc. But yes, there will be some shifts. In an election year, I think we should be prepared to see a certain deviation from fiscal conservatism.
Okay, but I don't know if stock markets and foreign investors will be willing to give us that leeway. Actually, Mr. Bhattacharya, what's your sense? You just spoke about...
if I may just say so.
Sure. Go ahead.
Sorry, if I may just say so. The dynamics of politics in an election year is more governed by what domestic political opinion is than, unfortunately or fortunately, by how the world of international capital looks at it.
I agree.
So I think we have to be prepared for that.
No, I agree.
And whatever adjustments will have to be made.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I guess foreign investors are used to it. But I must remind you, just as an event, the previous UPA government actually increased the prices of petrol by 50 paise every month, exactly 8 or 12 months leading to the previous polls in 2014. I mean, I guess their back was to the wall with the taper tantrums taking the toll on the rupee, but responsible decisions were taken in favor of the fisc at that time. But anyway, that's another aside. I just wanted to know about the economic policy now. AKB, what's your sense? You just spoke about the state finances. Do you expect populist spending or, some fiscal largesse from the centre? And two, the new man in RBI, seen as someone who understands the government point of view more than the Reserve Bank point of view, if that also were to mean, bigger liquidity, bigger giveaways to maybe line of credit to NBFCs, PCA banks being taken out, is all this leading to a worry that there could be a bit of populist and irresponsible actions?
Well, I'm not ruling out populist measures as the country goes into the election mode. I think one has to prepare for that. My worry is what kind of measures are taken to elevate agrarian stress. I mean, whether you go in for a palliative measure like just a minimum support price to be raised at a time when the market prices are at rock bottom. So I will come back to my earlier point that you cannot tackle the situation of agricultural surplus through measures that were devised at a time there was agricultural scarcity. So therefore, a possible way out, so therefore I'm worried that how effective will be the new set of measures, whether there will be pure debt waivers, which will be to my mind, which were disastrous. Instead, should it be something like what TSR or KCR in Telangana did? He introduced this Rayat Bandhu scheme by which it was a definite cash transfer, which is the farmer investment income support scheme. Now, that clearly has won him the votes and at the same time has certainly elevated the farm distress in a certain category of farmers. I agree this has a flaw. It doesn't attack the problem of the tenant farmers who are cultivating. So therefore, therefore, on the question of the distress, I am worried about what kind of measures are taken.
I take your point.
Instead of what kind of coming to Shaktikant Das's appointment. Shaktikant Das's appointment as the RBI governor, I think the big gain would be from the entire scheme of things is that probably Mr. Das will be a little more communicative with the stakeholders, and he will probably understand. He will be understanding the government's needs more than what Dr. Patel did in his
AKB, as media, we are hoping that what you said first is correct, that we get more communication. We were starved of it in the previous regime. But Swapan, what is, a question I was asking AKB as well, a resurgent Congress, is that a positive for opposition unity or will it be a negative for opposition unity? And if you were to now look at the 2019 results, therefore, will you see a BJP at 270 seats like they have done now, or at 230 or at 200?
Well, I'll come to the second question, which is a bit speculative. But as far what was interesting was the initial reaction of KCR to the results, and he said that he would be attempting to create a non-BJP, non-Congress alternative. In other words, the initial news of the Congress resurgence in the 3 Hindi-speaking states has led to a certain belief in what was called the federal front of the sort of third front as per one time, that they must now rally their forces because the Congress still isn't a national party. And therefore, that unless they have a sizable united force in Parliament, they will be overwhelmed by the Congress. So the idea is for them to ensure not merely that they perform well, but they perform well independently of the Congress. Now, one of the quirks of the election scene in India at present is that most states have direct contests. The exceptions are probably Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka and Maharashtra. These are the states where there are still triangular fights. So we'll really have to watch. Now, a lot of it will depend on what is going to be the attitude of the Congress to this. There will be pressure from within the Congress to once again assert that it is the dominant party in Indian politics. Now, if that happens, we don't know. So it's a space to watch out for. But as far as the 2019 elections are concerned, I think a lot will depend on how the terms of that election are set. What are going to be the principal issues which become? If Modi makes it a presidential election and takes it away from local issues, then the BJP has a formidable advantage.
Okay.